Hi, I'm Roman the Wanderer, and I play Volmor Arnulf, the Mandrori Ranger, in the Assassin in Dayo Gorge. Thank you for listening to the Iron Archives. The Iron Archives is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign with heavy homebrew elements. It was recorded and edited for optimal convenience of you, the listener. Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game played entirely within the theater of the mind. Players create imaginary characters and set off on an adventure developed by the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master acts as both the lead storyteller and referee. The goal of the game is not to defeat the other players, but to work together to tell the best possible story. Most actions performed by the players and Dungeon Master have outcomes determined by a dice roll, most commonly a 20-sided die. The players and Dungeon Master bring unique elements to the story. The players cannot be sure where the story will take them and must improvise when new elements are introduced. The Dungeon Master cannot know what actions the players will take and must improvise those actions. Neither the players nor the Dungeon Master can know what roles the dice will bring. Therefore, to everybody involved, the game is completely unpredictable. Nobody knows what will happen.
The party, who has just survived an avalanche behind them, takes a moment, takes a breather, and looks around them. Behind them is the pass into Dayo Gorge, which is now filled with snow and rubble from the landslide. Underneath, are now the bodies of the displacer beasts, your cart, and your unfortunate horses as well. The party, some of whom are pretty decently injured, some even collapsed to the ground, nursing their wounds, look around. Before you is the great and open valley that is Dayo Gorge. It is surrounded on all sides by tall, steep mountains that appear to be impassable. The gorge itself is filled with a combination of red and green, and this is being produced by the Dayo flowers. There are farms of these things absolutely everywhere, dotting the landscape. Each one seems to have a few different normal buildings you would expect: a barn, a house, a windmill. And along with the Dayo is grass, and over in the distance you even see a few trees. While there are houses, there aren't enough here to be considered a proper village. They appear to gather in the center, where there are a few more houses, although still not many. A creek winds through the entire valley and goes to the opposite side, where even from here, you can just barely make out a waterfall.
Torbjorn will survey the valley quickly, and that house there is just about a mile ahead. I think that we should go to see if they'll offer us some shelter.
Sounds like a plan, Captain.
Looks like that house is the Techard farm.
Perhaps they'd be willing to offer us a little bit of a refuge to take, maybe a shorter rest.
That would be advisable, yes.
We can only hope.
Remember, we are still merchants who unfortunately lost their cart.
Indeed.
This actually makes our story a little bit more believable now. We were attacked, and I guess shortly after that the avalanche happened, and we lost all our supplies, and now we're looking for a place to stay.
It's a high cost for the story, but it's all we have. Let's move out.
You began to move downhill slowly into the valley. It's a pretty sharp descent, and although it's not super far, you do occasionally get a little bit of relief from the cold. Maybe just because you're away from the snow now, but it does feel a little bit warmer as you go in. An occasional breeze hits you as you move in the direction of the nearby house.
Just remember, we are merchants, not warriors. Try to keep everything very low-key.
I'll do my best not to call you Captain.
Lara and Torbjorn, Are you both okay? I know I helped heal some, but it might not have been much.
I'm fine for now.
As long as we rest soon, it'll be fine.
Yeah, a good rest will do all of us good.
I really wish we still had the cart.
Agreed.
As you continue to descend, you start to make your way into general farmland. You are able to start making out more details, and you start seeing herd animals. You see very large, bighorn sheep that seem to be round up at this farm. You know them to be called argali, and you know that's a pretty common bit of livestock to be keeping in this area. Eventually, you make your way over to the farmhouse, which is humble. It's not very big at all, made out of wood with a smoking chimney.
I suppose that I will go up and knock on the door.
You knock on the door, and after a few moments, the door creaks open to the sight of a plain-looking human woman. She wears farmer's clothes, and she is built pretty sturdily. She is currently taking a bite out of a carrot, chewing right in front of you. Can I help you?
Yes, ma'am. My companions and I, we're humble merchants. We were traveling towards the valley here, and there was a massive avalanche. It destroyed our cart and killed our horses. We're in need of aid.
Well, it does seem like an issue. The pass is closed, you say?
It is very closed at the moment.
It's been a while since that happened. Well, I suppose you will need some help. Come on in, she says, opening the door into the house. The room is smoky in its smell. There are only a few windows and a fireplace. It's lit decently enough, but not bright. It's humble inside. There's not a whole lot of conveniences, but it seems to be enough. So what did you say you were in the valley for?
We're a group of merchants come here to sell different wares. Myself, I was hauling ale.
Pity. I could have used more ale. What's your name? She says, extending a hand.
My name is Torbjorn, ma'am.
Torbjorn. Kyra Tetrad. Good to meet you.
Thank you for your hospitality, Kyra.
Of course. And your friends?
My name is Alara. I was hoping to actually get some of that wonderful Dayo that you have growing here.
Oh, of course. Do you have a pipe?
I did. It was in the cart.
What a pity. Well, I'll let you borrow one of mine.
Thank you.
And the rest of you?
My name is Oburu, though I know some may not be able to pronounce it so easily.
My name's Volmar, ma'am.
And I'm Ulrich.
Oh, very good to have all of you. Well, we got to get you something to eat, and I guess some Dayo. Would anyone else like to get a little Dayo? Might help with the stress.
Well, if you have a pipe to spare, I wouldn't mind.
You might have to share with Alara, is it?
Yes.
You might have to share with Alara, but I can get you that as well.
That's not a problem.
Very well. She leaves the house for a moment, leaving you alone inside.
Volmar naturally just surveys the area just to see if he picks up anything strange.
Looking around, you see that this is just pretty much a two-room cabin. There's a bedroom and then there's a kitchen. You're currently in the bedroom. You look over to the kitchen and you can't help but notice that it is looking fairly empty. You know that normally there would be a lot of things hanging up that have been salted or preserved in other ways, but looking around, you don't really see any of that.
That definitely sets off alarm bells for Volmar. He leans over to the captain, nudges him a little, and nods towards the kitchen and says, "Bit sparse."
I noticed that myself.
As you guys are talking about this, and you hush up as you hear footsteps coming back, and Kyra returns with a pipe in one hand that seems to have some freshly crushed Dayo. She hands it to you, Alara. And in the other arm, she seems to have several leeks. They appear to be not the best quality in the world, but she just sort of silently continues over to the kitchen section.
Thank you. Laura lights the pipe.
Alara lights the pipe, and the smell of a dull cinnamon fills the room. As you smoke it a little bit, you feel yourself being able to think a little bit more clearly, and a little bit of pain relief as well. Certainly not strong enough to help your injuries at all, but it's comforting nonetheless.
Torbjorn will walk over to Kyra.
You walk behind her. She appears to be chopping up leeks and throwing them into a pot which is on its way to boiling on the stove. Did you need something?
Well, I just want to tell you that I appreciate your hospitality, and please don't feel that you have to give us too much of your stores. It seems that you may be a bit short for this winter.
She gives a pretty genuine smile. Dayo, Gorge, we generally find it a little rude to comment on your host's amenities.
Of course, my apologies.
No offense taken.
I just didn't want to impose.
Of course, there is no imposition. You're not wrong either. It's been a little short recently. Been having trouble keeping food on the table, but such is life. Please go back, relax.
Thank you. Torbjorn will walk back over and take a rest in the corner.
As he comes towards the group, Alara will hold out the pipe. Would you like any?
No, thank you. Some warm soup will do me just fine.
Fair. She instead turns and hands it to Ilric.
Thank you.
Elric begins to smoke it as well, and feels some of the same sensations.
Oh, this is quite nice.
After some time, Kyra comes back with several bowls and puts them on the table in front of each of you. Looking in, it appears to be a very simple soup, pretty much just water with boiled leeks inside of it. While it doesn't look complex, nor does it look particularly fancy, it looks solid enough.
Why, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Of course. And she takes a seat and begins eating her soup, taking the lead on that. The meal goes on without much conversation. Eventually, she breaks a relative silence. So, if you don't mind me asking, since you don't have anything to sell anymore, what do you plan to do till the snow melts?
To be honest, I don't think any of us have thought that far ahead. We happened to be attacked by some wild beasts just before the avalanche happened, and as crazy as it sounds, the avalanche probably saved our lives.
Well, I'm glad to hear that your life was saved. What sort of beast was attacking you?
Something strange and vicious. It looked like it was actually two, but it looked like some great cats that I'd never seen before.
They didn't have tentacles, did they?
They did.
Indeed.
Do you know of these creatures?
Her eyes kind of widen a little bit. Displacer beasts. The fact that you even survived against those things is incredible. You must be no ordinary merchants.
Well, we did just run.
Hard to outrun something like that. They hardly ever come near town.
They were incredibly focused on our horses.
And they didn't outrun the avalanche.
At least not that we know of.
Scary thought. Well, I suppose it's a good thing they got caught up in that. Not preying on anybody in town like that.
They would be quite unfortunate.
Indeed.
But as you said, it seems that now we are merchants with no wares. In fact, we only have clothes on our back at the moment.
Do you have any suggestions on the best places to go in town?
Well, normally I would offer you the chance to work for me, but I'm a little bit short-handed right now, and I wouldn't be able to pay you properly, but I'm sure any of the other farmers in the valley would be able to give you assistance, should you need it, as far as employment while you are waiting. You might also try going to the village center, or if you can afford not to work during this time, you might consider going over to Split Falls, and there you may see the old Mari fortress that so many scholars seem to come here interested in. I know you weren't planning for a vacation, but you might gain one.
Ooh, that sounds quite fun. Ilric, you want to go exploring?
I'm always up for exploring.
Well, we definitely owe you something for your hospitality, so if there's anything that you need done, please feel free to ask.
She hesitates for a moment. Well, no, there is nothing. Think nothing of it.
Ma'am, please, anything.
Well, I do have one problem, but it's not really your concern, and it's doubtful even you'd be able to even solve it. No offense, of course, but well, as you can tell, I've fallen on hard times. Unlike many of the other farmers here, I've put my investments a little bit more into livestock rather than just the Dayo, and it seems to have failed me. Many of my Argali seem to go missing overnight. I'm sure there's nothing you could do about that, though.
Well, how long has this been going on?
A few weeks, I believe. It's pretty significant, though. I usually lose 2 or 3 a night, and at this rate, by the end of the season, I'll have none left.
Do you think it could be the displacer beasts eating your algali?
Perhaps, but they're going missing. I never find any corpses.
Oh.
Hmm.
Theft, perhaps?
Perhaps. But I don't know anybody who would steal.
I was going to ask, are there any other farmers who have that same type of livestock?
No, I'm the only one who keep Argali, at least in any herds. Perhaps you would be able to find a few more Argali, but it's not as if those other farmers would have whole herds of it. It would just be one in the barn, or something along those lines.
And they go missing almost every night, you say?
Yes, usually.
It would not be a bad idea to perhaps set up a trap of sorts. Have someone stake out and see if they can catch anything.
Listen, you don't have to do anything like that. It's far too much effort, and I will be fine either way.
Well, we'll be happy to at least keep watch. Maybe we can find out what's happening, even if we can't do anything about it necessarily.
Well, if you insist, I certainly won't stop you.
It's done, then.
Oh, very well. You might have to stay up very late, though. These things only go missing during the night.
Well, then we'll get some rest early.
If you insist. Well, you do have some time even before that, though. And I would stay, as she says, as she kind of finishes up the soup, but I do have a little more work on the farm that must be done. Sorry I can't stay to entertain you in the meantime.
That's quite all right.
Well, make yourself at home, and thank you, she says with a bit of a smile and walks out the door.
We have to be careful how much we choose to do if we are to be merchants. Whatever's stealing her beasts might just have to stay that way until after we've achieved what we're here for.
Or these animals may be feeding a group of assassins. If it was a normal predator, they would have slaughtered the beast on sight and fed it there.
You make a fair point.
Either way, it won't hurt to see.
I agree that we should keep a low profile, but the life of a merchant is a dangerous one, especially if we're going through valleys such as this one. It's prime territory for bandits to take up posts as to rob people such as us. Us knowing how to fight isn't that much of a stretch.
Fair point.
Especially considering we've given the impression that we are traveling merchants.
Indeed. What do you think of that old fortress of the Mari she spoke of? A very good hideout. An old abandoned fortress?
Well, if there's scholars coming regularly to look at the thing, that's...
Well, you know, they could be messengers who are posing as scholars, just as we are soldiers posing as merchants.
Either that, or it's a fortress. It probably has some hidden compartment somewhere.
That too.
It's worth investigating, either way.
However, I do want to mention that this Sap Coast place looks fairly good to hide in.
This is true.
It does seem to be a bit of a thick forested area. There might be quite a few abandoned huts and cabins in there.
Torbjorn will nod his head and stroke his beard.
So, remind me again, they said they would come back and dig us out in 3 days, correct?
They said it would take about 3 days to clear the pass.
Does anybody else feel weird about that whole situation?
With the avalanche?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that silverbows are as precise with their time as a cohort. No offense.
None taken.
Perhaps, Captain. I feel like a wolf with my hackles up. Something doesn't feel right about all this.
Well, we've been thrust into the arena, and the door has been slammed behind us.
The door was nearly slammed on top of us.
Fair.
It hit us on the way out. Or in. Don't know which one we're in.
I believe it would be in.
We have very limited time here. We must make use of it very wisely. I believe we were told something about the Split Falls.
That would be the Mari Castle.
Is that where she said it was?
Yes.
It would be quite a place to hide, but I don't know if that'd be particularly, like you had mentioned earlier, the scholars.
Well, maybe it wouldn't hurt to at least check it out from a distance.
I agree.
Play the tourist, right?
I say before that we head to the village center.
Agreed. Perhaps we should comb the simpler areas first.
Before we go, Captain, could I see that dagger?
Well, certainly. Torbjorn will pull the dagger out with the sheath and hand it over to him.
You hold the dagger for a moment and pull it out slightly, looking at the bluish hue of the steel.
Now, I know you're probably more familiar with metals than I am, but I've never seen... Well, this isn't steel. What is it?
No, that's lay iron. Much harder and sharper than steel. Very rare. That is also not a true metal that you would get from the ground, but a plant that they grow. And this blade has been shaped instead of forged. It's quite fascinating.
Very valuable.
Indeed.
Interesting. Well, he hands it back to Torbjorn and locks eyes with him as he hands it back.
Torbjorn will give a slight smile. Well, after we rest up a bit, we may have time to go to the village center. I think we could probably be back by nightfall.
Yes, perhaps just a short rest would probably do as well.
You roll up the map you have been poring over. Torbjorn, at the mention of the ley urn, actually takes the time to go ahead and leave it near the window so it gets a little sunlight for the day. And you all go into various states of rest. Some of you may choose napping, while some others might just choose light conversation. A few minutes pass into about an hour, and you feel significantly better off than you were. You leave the farmhouse and begin making your way to the village center. Crossing a small bridge over the creek, after about an hour's worth of travel, you eventually make it to the center. There are about 5 houses here, and there doesn't really appear to be much rhyme or reason to how they are put together. They look a little bit different than just a pure uniform of houses. They seem to be just sort of slapped together, customized in whoever built them's way. But they are all wood, and they all do have smoke coming out of them. There is one with a pretty large room off to the side with a very large chimney, smoke coming out, and out of this one you hear rhythmic beating of metal on metal.
Volmar's looking to see if he sees any kind of town guard or rangers or anything like that.
Nope, there appears to be no sign of town guard at all. It's pretty quiet here. It occurs to you that maybe if there are anything like a town guard here, they probably don't have enough money here to actually just afford to pay someone to do nothing but guard. So maybe a part-time volunteer force, but that would be it.
Torbjorn will walk towards the blacksmith.
As you make your way to the blacksmith's, you can see that the extra room has not even a proper door to it. This is actually more like a porch once you get closer to it. And inside there is a Tyranid man who is currently working on some farm tool. He is pretty disheveled looking. You know that most Tyranids will wear masks as to cover up their pits they have on their faces rather than eyes, but this one wears none. He's a little bit shorter than Oberu, but still tall compared to about everybody else. He has a square chin with a black stubble.
Hello there, friend.
Strangers.
Indeed, we're traveling merchants. We have fallen on a bit of hard luck entering the valley here.
He has a quizzical look on his face. What sort of hard luck?
Well, an avalanche has sealed the pass, and we were in the middle of it when it started coming down, lost our cart and all of our wares. We barely made it out with our own lives.
Not to mention the displacer beasts, or so we've been told they're named, attacking our horses. And us, thankfully we started running just in time for said avalanche, to take care of those.
Hard luck. Do you need help?
No, we're just new in the valley here, and we seem to be merchants without much to sell, so we're looking for something to bide our time until, and perhaps give us a little coin until they get the pass cleared, however long that takes.
Oh, very well then, he says, and he turns back to the work on the tool. It strikes you as a little odd how suddenly he just ended that conversation.
Let me ask you though, friend, have you had any other travelers come through recently?
Travelers. Well, there's often scholars coming by, and they want to study the waterfall. But nobody new has come since Morlin.
Morlin?
Morlin Turlane. He is a trapper who came in a few weeks ago.
I see. And his business was just trapping furs?
Goes up, tries to get near the mountains sometimes, or in sap copse. He's still here. Hadn't left yet.
Oh, so you're familiar with him. He's been here before.
Comes in, has me make him new traps every once in a while.
Ah. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry. My name is Torbjorn, and Torbjorn will stick out his hand to offer it.
He extends a calloused, dry hand towards you with his stone-like arms, gives you a very firm grip. Django Ajambo.
I used to strike some iron myself before I became an ale merchant. Any business selling any weapons up this way, or is it all horseshoes and plows?
Weapons. Well, I guess hunters need weapons sometimes. Nothing like a sword or anything like that, though.
I see. Very well. Very good to meet you, Jingo.
Were you hurt? He says, after what you thought the conversation was over, he turned back a little surprised.
Not myself, but my companions here took a few bruises. Like I said, it was very close. The avalanche came right down on us. We barely made it out.
Should see Ichabod if you're hurt. He's good with that.
Ichabod. Excellent, thank you. If you happen to see any merchants, could you maybe send me word? I just want to make sure that we're not encroaching on anyone else's territory.
Of course.
Good talking with you.
Good talking with you.
And Torbjorn will turn and walk out of the blacksmith. Well, a bit of information, but nothing that I see to be useful.
Well, what do you think about that trapper fellow?
Jingo was familiar with him, but he may have seen something if we happen to run across him.
He said he was out near the sap cops, right?
I think he just said he tries to trap close to the forest, but that's as good a place to check as any.
He seemed a little odd.
Well, staring at a forge all day will do that to some people.
He also did mention the Split Falls again, where the Mari Fortress is at.
Well, that is a popular attraction for the scholars of the Empire.
Not to mention, it's a quite small town. Could be the only thing deemed interesting enough to tell foreigners. Or people from outside.
As you exit from the blacksmith's shop, you do see a elderly-looking dwarven woman who is outside one of the houses at this point. She appears to be sweeping up the front, and she looks up at you, and her eyes go wide for a moment. Well, not often you get visitors here, especially this time of the year.
Hello. We're merchants, but, we actually, unfortunately, do not have any wares to sell. As we were passing through your very narrow pass into Dayo Gorge here, an avalanche struck. Luckily for us, it, definitely saved our lives, as we were attacked by some displacer beasts. We let them have our horses, and we got out of there.
Ah, so you were near that avalanche. Not a coincidence. We saw it from over here. My husband, Blard, went over there to check it out. He shouldn't be long now, actually. I'm surprised you didn't see him on the way in.
Hold on. You said you saw it, correct?
Yes. You can look back over there at the mountains, and as she says this, you look back and you can see that the two mountains that make the pass there are still very clearly visible. That avalanche started all the way from the top of the mountain to the second sun, and it looked like it went right into the pass.
Sorry, that just struck me as odd, because everyone we've brought it up to so far has seemed unaware.
Well, it's not like you could hear it or anything. We just happened to be looking at the right place.
Fair enough.
Like seeing thunderless lightning.
So you're poets, then?
What?
Speaking poetry, I reckon you must be poets.
Ulrich, you should change your occupation.
It's merely a side hobby.
Well, do you have a place to stay?
The lady Tetrad has offered us a place to stay for the evening, but that's only, I believe, a night-by-night arrangement.
Yeah, if you have a place to stay, I won't bother you with it anymore. Can I help you with anything? You find yourselves in a bad situation.
It is indeed a bad situation for us, but hopefully we'll manage. It seems like the people in this valley are very kind and giving.
Yeah, we try to be neighborly.
Indeed. Actually, I have something I might need. See, Tetrad has been very kind in taking us in, and I would like to bring something back to cook for a decent meal. Do you have anything I might be able to buy from you?
Oh, nothing from me, but if you're looking for something to buy in general, we keep a small store here. Although the shopkeeper Gellion isn't always there, trying to do a little farm work, I imagine. But I believe he's there. She points to a nearby building that doesn't look like much more than a house at all. It's right over there.
Oh, I thank you.
So what is it that you and your husband do?
Well, the both of us are farmers. We own a homestead, a farm to the north of here. Vlad has also sort of become a de facto leader of us here in the valley. They consider him an elder of sorts.
Ah,
I guess I have my own influence too.
excellent. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name?
My name is Oblum Homesteader. And yours?
I am Torbjorn Itrison. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
So it seems that you keep an eye out around here for the farmers. Have you noticed anything odd lately? Before the avalanche, of course.
Anything odd before the avalanche? Well, not many exciting things happen in Dayo Gorge. Kyber Tetrad, she's, I believe, your hostess. She's apparently had some of her golly gone missing. Shame about that. There's the... well, it's the adopted son of the shopkeeper. Seems to be going missing every once in a while, but coming back and not telling where he's from. Although I think that just might be how kids are. And besides that, nothing peculiar has happened since Alna died.
Since who died?
Alna Turlane. A while back, a trapper and his wife came into this valley, and not much longer his wife passed away, poor thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. How long ago was that?
Oh, just a few weeks.
My goodness.
Fairly recent.
Very recent.
Was it an accident?
She was just too sick.
Well, that's quite unfortunate. Is her husband still in Dayo Gorge?
He comes by every once in a while, still doing trapping up and near sap copse and in the mountains.
Oh, would that be Morlin?
Yes, you've heard of him.
Indeed.
He's a kind old elf. Keeps to himself for the most part, though.
But no other merchants come through recently or anything like that?
Not for some time. It's a shame, too, that you got caught in that avalanche. We could have used the supplies.
Unfortunately, we sold it all to the avalanche.
Had quite a bargain for them.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose your lives are at a pretty good price.
Fair enough. Well, that's one of the reasons why we came to the gorge. We were hoping to find some fresh markets. Perhaps the next trip.
Indeed. Hope you can come back.
You said that you were in need of a shipment. Was it just right around the time that you would normally be getting new merchants in?
Well, as you know, it's getting more dangerous. The peace that the Empire brings is... Well, it's no secret the Empire is not as strong as it used to be. It's just more difficult for merchants to get all the way over here. Perhaps we'll be forgotten altogether.
Well, that is a shame. This is a wonderful, beautiful little valley.
That's very kind of you to say, dear. Well, I suppose I shouldn't be getting in your way anymore. Do make yourselves at home in our little valley, and if we can help you out with anything, let us know. If you're needing coin, you might be able to get work. I'm sure Blood would be more than happy to offer you work over in the farm, or if you're looking to do some looking around, you can see some of the old Mari artifacts. They say a Mari civilization used to be here. I remember my parents talking about it when I was just a little girl.
We've heard about it a few times now. Still a very interesting prospect.
Well, I need to be getting back to the housework. It was good meeting you all. And she walks back into the house.
Well, perhaps we should go to the Homesteader farm to see if Blard has heard anything of where Moreland might be.
Well, it's right next to it.
Indeed.
One thing I will recommend, though. The kid, what was it? Django's kid? The one that seems to, leave and come back unannounced?
I think it was the shopkeeper's, Galen's son, yes.
Ah, yes. Sounds like he may possibly be a runner for Dorian. Kids are very easily manipulated, and given enough money, very easily could just give information.
Perhaps that's an avenue that we should try.
My question, though, is he in the arena or is he out? If that is the case.
And I worry, too, about showing our hand this early in the game.
Agreed.
I was counting on perhaps the trapper seeing something, since he would be the one who would be visiting the wildest places in this valley.
That's a good idea. Perhaps we should check in on the Homesteader farm, and perhaps we'll run into him along the way. This valley is not very large.
Sounds good, Captain. Let's go.
It's Torbjorn.
Of course, Torbjorn.
All right. Well, does anyone need anything else in town? Anyone want to see the healer, Ichabod, or stop at the shop?
Perhaps seeing if we can go to that healer and perhaps them having any potions to spare may be a good idea.
To spare? Or to buy?
Same thing.
That is the question. I'm really liking this poetry thing now.
Don't get carried away. Remember your first job.
You look around, and there's still about 3 houses you haven't tried yet. Looking there, you can see how one could kind of double up as a shop, so you figure that's Galeon's shop. However, you're unsure of the other 2.
Which one smells the funniest?
The smaller one definitely strikes you as smelling more funny. You go in that direction. You give a knock on the door, and after some time, it opens up to a willowy-looking halfling, standing about 3'2". It's strange that he would be so thin, but he has this white hair which has migrated from the top of his head to become thick sideburns, and there's only occasionally bits of hair coming out of his chin. He's obviously very old, and he's pretty pale as well. He looks at you over spectacles and says, Who are you?
I'm Ilric Nygard. Is this Ichabod?
Yes, I'm Ichabod Oddstork. How can I help you?
Ah, yes, we were just wondering if you have any healing supplies we could maybe browse or look around for.
Healing supplies? I have no need of silliness as that. Why, I can heal through the power of magic alone. No need for potions.
Well, that's quite surprising.
I believe you mean impressive.
Both.
Well, what is it that you need?
Alara just steps forward and she goes, I don't know if you heard, but there was a terrible avalanche, in the pass earlier, and we got caught up in it, and I still have a few scrapes. We were told that if we needed any assistance with that, to come to you. You were recommended by everyone we spoke to.
As I should be, but I won't waste my gifts on something as simple as a few different scrapes. You could just sleep that off.
That's fair.
So, what type of injuries do you normally attend to?
I am the doctor around these parts, you could say. If anybody has something a little more life-threatening, I'm more than happy to help, but I won't waste it on that, which is so tedious.
Of course not.
Do you have to deal with life-threatening injuries often?
Oh, of course. All the time. These farmers don't have any sense of self-preservation.
And what of sicknesses?
Oh, sickness, of course. Anything like that. I am quite capable of handling myself.
Then what of the trapper's wife?
You can see his face change a little bit, and there's an obvious change in tone of his voice. Oh, you mean Alna? Yeah, that was a sad case with her. I did everything I could. It was just her time.
Everyone has their time. I apologize for bringing up such a sensitive
And
subject.
mine is quickly approaching, and if you don't mind, I would not like to waste any more of it talking to you. Good day. Door closes.
Well, Oberu, I think you said just the right thing.
Alara is clearly trying to hold in a laugh.
You want to check out the falls? I don't think it would raise any eyebrows for us to travel up there, being as it's so popular.
Yeah, I'd really like that.
The group begins to travel in the direction of the falls. As a couple of miles pass, in relative peace, you look around, watch the windmills and the Dayo flowers move along with the breeze, and each gust of wind brings several of the petals out in front of your faces before continuing onward.
Volmar, will you keep an eye out for any disturbances towards the edge of the fields there, close to the mountains, anywhere where there might be traffic that would seem unusual?
Of course, Torbjorn.
Thank you, friend.
As you continue making your way, you see that the creek begins to get further and further away from the level of land that you are, and it seems to be a bit of an increase. Looking ahead, it seems like you could still stay on the land, however, you're unsure if it's going to stay with the creek as the land gets higher and higher.
Perhaps we ought to cover both avenues.
Well, we're just here to survey. I think it's better if we stay together and all of us get the same kind of look.
Fair. I'm sure we'll be back a few times.
But Volmar, that is the cohort way. Perhaps the Silver Bows do things a bit differently. It's normally against my advisement to split the party, but if they feel comfortable.
Volmar raises an eyebrow.
Making sure that you have your posterior covered seems to be usually our focus.
Fair enough.
Alberu is going to nudge Ulrich with his elbow. If we really want to split it all, perhaps you can use your falcon.
Very true. That's tend to be why we have him. We Silverbows tend to be used for a lot for scouting and espionage reasons, so we're used to going off either on our own or in groups of two. Quite perfect for the both of us.
Don't take this the wrong way, but it doesn't seem like you two are built very sturdy.
But we are built quite sneaky.
Indeed.
That I can agree with.
Well, perhaps just send the Falcon up to see if you can notice at least a path, perhaps, to the ruins.
You've got it. And I'll send the Falcon up and take a look around and see what I can see.
The falcon flies up a good distance and begins to circle around. Looking around, you see that both paths will lead all the way to the waterfall. However, the upward hill will go above the waterfall into a cliff that overlooks it, whereas continuing would bring you straight to the waterfalls.
Well, it looks like the mountain path will lead us up to the top of the waterfalls, while the other one will lead us to it. So if we're looking to jump in and have some fun, we can take the mountain path.
Do we know if the fortress is behind the waterfall?
Did the falcon see the fortress?
No, I assume it might be either further back or up higher up on the mountains. Maybe even in the waterfall.
Knowing that it's a Mari fortress, it's probably in the waterfall, so it looks like straight with the creek here is the best way to go.
You begin to start going through the creek. After about 15 minutes of walking, you notice that the bank is slowly becoming smaller and smaller, and it's becoming sheer cliff face on either side. The water looks shallow, but the bank is slowly losing any ability to be walked on. You would estimate that you are probably about a mile walk from the waterfall at this point.
Alara doesn't hesitate. She walks right into the creek.
She walks in to an absolutely freezing cold. It occurs to you that this thing came up from on top of the mountains. This is probably snow melt you're in. You manage to tough it out, though, and while your feet are quickly numbing, you feel you can continue walking this way.
Well, I won't say that it's not cold. It seems the only way forward.
I'm having problems imagining scholars trudging through this.
Would you like to go back and try the other path?
Perhaps there's an entrance on the top of the falls, rather than in it. A cave, perhaps?
Well, if we're just here to survey the area, maybe a overhead view is better.
I agree.
Okay,
All right.
alright, you can now get out of the freezing cold water.
Yeah, I'll just... That's fine.
Alara walks out of the freezing cold water.
And I suppose we will backtrack and go around to the upper path.
Going back and then coming again through this direction, you climb up this hill and watch as the cliffside to the creek become steeper and steeper. Eventually, you all make it to a point where you can start hearing the low rumble of the falls. Excitedly, you continue on, and eventually you make your way to a cliff. And not only now is there a cliff that would fall to the creek to your right, but now there's one directly in front of you that would fall to a pool that has formed at the bottom of these falls. The waterfall is massive, coming all the way from the top of a nearby mountain. You look down the cliff a little bit, and towards the bottom, for seemingly no reason, as if there was a rock straight in the middle of it, the waterfall splits in two, and then both ends fall into the pond. Starting right where the split begins is a huge iron door, which is 30 feet wide by 50 feet tall. There are all sorts of intricate carvings on this door. On the other side of the creek, looking towards the mountains, a huge stone arch catches your eye. It appears to be right next to a nearby mountain.
Is that perhaps the pendulum?
Looking over, you are able to see a good amount of trees that seem to be all dead, along with another farm that's close to it. When you pull out the map and compare things, you notice that the large arch seems to match up with the pendulum. The forest seems to match up with sap copse, and the farm matches Homesteader Farm. You are currently on the east side of the creek.
Yep, looks like the pendulum.
Interesting. Well, back to the door problem, I guess. I have some rope. but it is quite far if you fall.
Well, think of it this way. If we would have a problem getting in, anybody we're hunting is going to have a problem getting in and out.
Unless there's a pathway that only a small kid would know.
Huh.
Good point.
Can I look around and see if there's any areas that seem to have, like, paths that seem to have been made by extra foot traffic or anything here?
You very carefully scan the nearby cliffs and the paths around, and just as you're about to give up, from the corner of your eye, you catch something that anybody even slightly less perceptive would have missed. You see on the other side of the cliff, there is a small tent stake that has been pounded into the cliffside.
This looks to me a lot like a makeshift piton for climbing. How much you want to bet that's how they get up and down?
Very sharp eyes. I hadn't even noticed that.
I almost didn't see it myself.
She is the sharper of the two.
Now, don't sell yourself short. Well, what do you say we go around and give it a shot? Does anyone else have any rope? We could tie a few together.
I have 50 feet.
I also have 50 feet. That puts us at 100.
I also have 50 feet.
Wonderful. Well, that puts us at plenty.
All right, well, it looks like we're up for a climb.
Hooray!
Are we sure we want to do this now with the light fading?
I suppose.
Yeah, good point, Volmar. Perhaps we should go back and rest up so that we can keep watch this evening.
Hold on. Before we leave, I think it would be a good idea to try and cover up any tracks we may have made while coming up here. If this is our desired target, we know how crafty and slippery he can be. If he knows that we've been up here, he may run far, and he may change camp if this is exactly where he's been.
I can cover our tracks.
I will allow me to assist you.
Kid, I do this for a living all the time. I'm not sure. Fine. Yeah, you can know.
It's better safe than sorry.
Let him help. He might learn something.
Volmar, you're impressed with Oburu's ability to cover the tracks. There are a few tricks you thought you were about to teach him. However, he seemed to be already aware of them. Both of you feel that you've done a pretty good job of covering up your tracks as you go back. Eventually, you find yourself back at the head of the creek and continue your journey southward. You get to the point where you are left with a choice. If you want to go back to the town center, you have to start moving in that direction if you want to get there most quickly. But if you want to get back to Tetrod Farm the most quickly, you're just going to have to keep going in your direction.
Well, did we want to go see that shop, or do we want to go back and...
I heard you say something about buying some food to prepare for Kyra.
Oh, yes. How could I have forgotten?
That would be a good idea. I don't want to impose whenever her food storage is so low.
I do love to cook.
Yes.
And I love to eat, so...
Well, then it's decided.
You begin moving in the direction of town once again. You get into town. This time, you see a little halfling boy who appears to be playing with some sticks. You can see he is swinging one around as if it were a sword. I got you this time!
Whoa, ho there, warrior.
Looking up, he apparently just now notices you. His eyes go wide, he drops the stick, and immediately runs into the nearby house.
Look what you did. You scared him.
All right, let's walk to the shop.
Oberu is going to pick up the stick before he enters the shop.
You all enter the shop. You look around and see that it's pretty basic supplies, grain, farming tools, other things, nothing of any particular luxury. Just 1 minute, you hear from the other side. And after a moment, a door opens, and an old Mari man enters the room.
Oh, visitors. Pretty rare we get travelers around here.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you as well. What brings you to Dayo Gorge?
Well, it's a sad story. We are actually merchants, but we were almost caught by the avalanche, and all of our wares were destroyed.
The Mari gets a little bit closer. In the dim light, you get a better look at him and see that he has very milky gray eyes.
Avalanche, you say?
Yes, it was just earlier today. We barely made it out of there alive.
I wonder if Blard knows about that.
We actually spoke with his wife earlier, and I believe that they're aware.
Oh, good. Well, seems you'll probably be in the gorge for some time. Last time there was an avalanche, didn't go away for some days. Yeah, I might be able to lend Blard my ice pick. I got the only one in the gorge, but it's gone missing recently.
Oh, how recently is recent?
Oh, I noticed it a few days ago.
I see. In a small area like this, it would seem that something like that would be noticed.
Well, it's just an ice pick. And I don't notice much. Well, how can I help you folks?
The mistress at Tetrad Farm is going to is letting us stay there tonight, so we thought we would prepare her a meal to say thank you.
Well, that's awfully neighborly of you. I can help you with that,
he says, taking a seat on a nearby stool.
Tenjin, get in here.
And you see the door open again, and the same halfling child from before opens it gingerly, kind of looks in, staring at you.
Tenjin,
These people need food. What kind of food were you looking for specifically?
Torbjorn will look towards Alara.
Well, something we can make that'll be a nice hot dish. It's getting a little cold.
Perhaps, something you can bake. Pancakes, perhaps. Tenjin, fetch eggs, milk, butter, and grain, please.
And
make sure it's been ground.
You watch as the halfling boy quickly moves to different parts of the store and picks those things out, puts them on the desk. You watch as the Mari places his hand on the desk, feeling around for a bit before he gets each of these and weighs them.
Perhaps a little meat?
Of course. Bacon too, Tenjin.
Very heavily salted bacon is also placed in front.
Will this do for you?
That'll be perfect.
Torbjorn will pull out his coin purse and pull all of the coins out of the purse and sort of let them slide back in. How much is it, sir?
For the lot of this, 7 silver will do.
7 silver. And Torbjorn will very slowly count out 7 silver, making sure that the young halfling sees the money.
He appears to be staring at you very intensely.
All right.
Once the 7 silver put into his hand, he feels each one between his finger and his thumb very carefully.
All right, everything seems to be in order. Can I do anything else for you?
Do you know if there's any way that perhaps we could busy ourselves with a little work over the next few days? Since, like you say, the avalanche may take some time to clear out.
Well, if you want to do me a favor, you could find my ice pick. Might even be able to give you a low reward money for it. If you're looking for something a little more honest, I'm sure you could find some work at the Homesteader Farm. Blard has a little bit too much work for his plate right now.
Perhaps we can do both.
Well, I appreciate you keeping an eye out for my ice pick.
Yes, sir. One other thing. We had a message to give to a local trapper here, Mr. Trulane. If you know anyone that might have information about where he is, or any other travelers in the area, then would you mind sending them our way?
Moreland Tourlane?
Yes, sir.
He doesn't come around all too often, usually gets all his supplies at once. Yeah, one of those live-off-the-land types. You usually won't find him at the farm he purchased a while back, just stays over in the woods.
He purchased a farm, you say?
Oh yeah, when he first got here, he and his wife, they purchased a farm, but after her death, he began just a trap.
When you say in the woods, do you mean the sap course?
The sap copse, yeah, mostly there.
And is the farm close by there?
No, other side of the gorge.
Ah, I see. All right. Well, thank you for your time and this delicious-looking food.
Oh, thank you. Say goodbye, Tenjin. Goodbye.
Good evening.
Yeah, before they leave, Alvaro is just gonna kind of attempt to hand off the stick to the halfling child.
He cautiously takes it.
No, if you'd like, I can actually show you how to properly swing that.
His eyes light up. But really? You mean that?
Of course I do.
He looks back over. But where'd you learn something like that?
Me and my companions here are traveling merchants.
Need to know how to protect ourselves.
It doesn't sound like much, but it is indeed quite dangerous work. We have to know how to protect ourselves from bandits and monsters and the like.
You couldn't be merchants. You must be a warrior.
Oh, hush, Tenjin. If they say they're merchants, they're merchants. You know children.
Indeed.
Yeah, Obru is gonna indulge the child. Perhaps you could call me that.
He has a pretty big smile. Can we learn now?
Oh, they'll be in the gorge for a while, Tenjin, and it's getting dark. We should let our guests go.
Perhaps tomorrow, little one.
I'd like that.
Alara's just gonna give him a little wave as she walks out and nice smile.
And after they leave, Volmar leans over to Oberon and says, "Little kids got big mouths."
He's a child. Whether he believed me or not, he probably would have called me a warrior. Besides, indulging a child like that would just make it seem like we were trying to make him feel good.
Maybe.
Well, regardless, we should get back and cook this before she thinks to cook something already for dinner.
Good point.
You make your way back just as the sun is finally making a full set to the Tetrod farm. Knocking on the door, Kyra Tetrod opens it up again. Oh, well, what do you know? Didn't think you'd be coming back. Thought you might have found another place to stay.
Well, we promised you that we would take a look at your livestock problem, and we will.
Oh, very good. Well, come on in.
Miss Tetrad, we went and got a surprise. You see, my brother here is a very good chef, and we thought it might be nice to enjoy some good food.
I won't say no to that.
Yeah, it was all we could do for you.
Did you get bacon?
Indeed.
Oh, this is turning out to be quite a day indeed. You begin visiting with Kyra, and during this time, Ilric quickly moves over to the kitchen.
Torbjorn is just going to go and have a seat by the fire and rest up, maybe take a nap.
You know, if I ever were to retire from this soldier's life, this doesn't look like a bad place to do it.
Well, I'm more of a city man myself.
What do you mean, soldier's life?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just a little bit of a running gag we have with how often we have to fight off a bandit or a wild animal.
She looks at you suspiciously. Interesting. Well, it appears that our food is just about ready, she says as Ilric enters the room with pancakes and bacon. You enjoy a much heartier meal than you had for lunch. Well, after you finish, well, this was very pleasant of you. I thank you for the gift. It really isn't necessary for you to be looking out for my livestock. I should be doing that myself. But if you are going to do that, I think I'm going to get some sleep.
Rest well.
Do the Argoli stay in a pen or in a hutch at night?
I let them wander free, but they usually stay in one herd. Won't be hard to find.
Very well. We'll see if maybe we can find out what is going on this evening.
Appreciate it. You exit the house, and you watch as the fire immediately dims from the windows.
Well, I can try to find the herd. Move in that general direction.
Seems like a fair plan.
Do we want to go as a group or just some scouts?
Perhaps we should choose some watches.
Your call, Torbjorn.
Yeah, I think watches are a good idea. Just be careful. Don't engage unless you absolutely have to. We're just looking for information at this point.
Makes sense.
Volmar, I suppose that you and I can take the first watch. We'll find the herd and report back and let the twins perhaps come in later. Oberu, you rest up, and if we need you, we'll let you know.
The rest of you make a small camp just outside of the home while Torbjorn and Volmar begin moving in the direction led by Volmar. So you manage to pretty easily find the herd. They are all sleeping, but these are very, very large bighorn sheep. You think if it was standing up, Volmar, that from the front legs to the top of its horn, it would be just as tall as you.
Seeing that, Volmar turns to Torbjorn and says, if somebody wants to steal these things, they gotta be pretty determined. Or have a way with animals.
Fair point. Do you see a place where we could conceal ourselves? Keep watch?
There are occasional spots where there are shrubs or trees. Places like that seem decent enough. Maybe even a rock or two.
All right, I point those out to Torbjorn and have him take a pick.
This is your forte, my friend. I'll follow your lead.
All right, well, you move faster on the ground, right? So how about you take that shrub up there, and I'll hang out in the tree up here, and if I need to glide down, I can do it.
Excellent idea.
Oburu. Goodness. You're going to make things a little bit difficult if you keep doing that.
What did he do?
Oh, I suppose you were cooking. You didn't hear him. I think it's probably just habit for you, Oburu. It's a hard habit to break, I know. He said that when he was done with soldier's life, maybe he might retire to some place like this, is I think what he said. But either way, it's forgivable. And Alara will give him a gentle smile. We all make mistakes.
My question, though, is how and why is there a 120-foot rope ladder or rope drop that they try to get to the door from? Doesn't seem quite practical.
No, but I don't think practicality is really the question there. I think that might be how they got in, but I quite doubt there's not another entrance. Especially if this related to the whole cattle issue going on here, the livestock. Because if they're taking these large beasts, they can't take those down a rope, for sure.
I also don't see scholars climbing down that rope either.
Agreed. It does seem a bit odd. I feel like our searching today has only led us to perhaps more questions, but with a bit more searching, I'm sure we can narrow it down.
Every search starts off with a bunch of questions.
This is true.
And with that, you all begin to settle into various states of rest. Back only a few hundred yards away, Volmar and Torbjorn wait in hiding, watching the sleeping herd, waiting to see what happens next.
Hi, my name's Salman Rafi, and I play Ilric Nygard, the Warlock, in the Iron Archives. Thank you for listening to the Iron Archives. In this game, the Dungeon Master was DJ Kessinger, the Assistant Dungeon Masters were Noah Madison and Van Sprague. The players were Jamie Rose, Roman Martel, me, Ryan Sprague, and Kayla Techimer. Sound editing was done by Rose Abernathy. If you like this program, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's your generous contributions that allow us to continue making this show. Patrons receive exclusive content from the world of Mendrius, such as art and lore. Thank you for your support.